Parole, Committee on Parole is called back to order. The time is 10:19. Our next case is Mr. Chester Schneider. Mr. Schneider, would you please give us your full name and DOC number?
Yes, sir. My name is Chester Gerald Schneider Senior, 118779.
Thank you. Mr. Schneider, let me explain our process to you. First, I'm going to read some information into the record, then we're going to conduct a parole interview with you. At the appropriate time, we will allow those persons who wish to speak to have their input. You have a number of people that wish to speak today. Normally, we only allow 3 people to speak. You have your sister, Doris Weiss, your friend, Marshall Slay. We have Mr. Darrell Miles from First 72, Mr. Kerry Myers from the Louisiana Parole Project, and of course, your lawyer, Ms. Myers, who is here to represent you. I'm going to ask Mr. Miles and Mr. Myers, and both of them are generally very brief in their presentation. If they would, we're going to let everybody talk, but we would like you to be as precise and concise as possible. So, and after we do that, you'll have an opportunity to say whatever you'd like. And Ms. Myers, I assume you wish to speak after he has his final say. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and make an appearance for the record, please?
Good morning, Honourable Committee. My name is Amy Myers, and I'm a pro bono attorney with the Parole Project representing Mr. Schneider. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Chester G. Schneider Jr., DOC number 118779, date of birth October the 7th of 1959. He's a 7th class felony offender. He has a parole eligibility date of January the 8th of 2023, an adjusted good time date of January the 7th of 2054, and a full term date of January the 8th of 2063. He is currently serving a 60-year sentence on the charge of first-degree robbery and attempted first-degree robbery. Is that information accurate, Mr. Schneider?
Yes, sir. I'm senior. I'm not junior, sir.
Okay.
My son on it.
I'm sorry, it does say senior.
Okay.
I just can't read.
All right. I don't want to get my son.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm a junior. I should have picked that up, but your case has been assigned to Mr. Pete Freeman. Mr. Freeman will begin our interview process. Would you please answer any questions he might have?
Okay, Mr. Schneider, how old are you?
63, sir.
Okay, and what's your educational level?
I've got a high school graduation, and I'm a certified instructor and mentor in heating, ventilation, and air conditioning.
Okay, we're going to talk about that a little bit more later. How long have you served on this charge, on the 60 years?
Close to 20 years and 8 months.
I'd be willing to say this is the longest period you've ever served in jail?
Yes, sir. By far.
By far. Okay. Yeah, Mr. Schneider, I read the arrest report. You were arrested for first-degree robbery of a gas station. You led them on a high-speed chase, and they caught you. Just kind of tell us, you didn't have a weapon. You acted like you had a weapon, correct?
Yes, sir. I had my hand in my pocket.
Correct. So what was going on in your life at that time? Why were you robbing a store?
I've been most of my life alcoholic and severe drug addict, and I've come to learn that addiction is extremely selfish, and we do these things for ourselves, and we want what we want, and that's basically what that was all about, drug addiction and trying to just do that, get more drugs.
Okay, what was your drug of choice at that time?
Cocaine.
And how old were you when you started using drugs and alcohol?
First time I did cocaine, I was 16 years old, and I've done it continuously throughout my adult life.
I've seen you've taken a ton of classes, a lot of them dealing with drugs. You took Living in Balance 1 and 2, Thinking for a Change, Celebrate Recovery. I'm not going to ask you to speak on all of the classes you've taken because it's a lot of classes, but tell me which classes affected you the most and why.
That's a good question. It's kind of hard for me to answer because a conglomeration of all of them had outrageous effects in my life. Like I told you before, when I learned how selfish I was and how I left a path of victims in my way for drug addiction, including my family. Excuse me. I mean, drug addiction caused me to have the ones that love me most, the worst. And when I realized that, things even changed my life. And AA has been a great help to me. But living in freedom, living in balance, and victims impact, and all of them, I mean, have made a huge impact on my life and who I am today. I can't single out one because all of them were so wonderful. I mean, I couldn't really pick out which ones I want because I got something out of all of them, and they made me who I am today, and I'm thankful for that.
Okay, what would be your sobriety plan if you got out? What are you gonna do to assure this board that you could do your best to remain sober?
I'm gonna attend church in Mandeville with the church that comes up here and does Living in Freedom. I'm gonna help facilitate and attend Celebrate Recovery. I'm gonna attend AANA. I'm Catholic, and I've not taught, but I've got the addresses for some of the Catholic dioceses there where I can find out where the AANA programs are. I'm going to continue doing that, and there's so many other things, community service I like to do. I mean, my belief today is if you don't give back, you're coming back, and that's not. If I come back, I want to come back to help. I want to come back to lead people. I don't want to come back like I am today.
Okay. I looked at your supervision record. It wasn't the best, That's back when you were on drugs, but you've been revoked 3 times. You absconded a couple times. You tell this board, why should we give you a chance today?
If I was in your shoes, I don't know that I can answer that. I don't know that I would be willing to put my neck on the line for anybody, especially when you see, my past. Drug addiction has been a terrible thing in my life. And that's why, I constantly speak about how selfish it is. And I never had any long-term treatment. And the treatment that I did have, I was just a dry drunk. You can see on my record where I go 2 or 3 years good and I get in trouble. I go 2 or 3 years and I get in trouble. I was just a dry drunk. I never worked 12 steps. I never admitted that I was powerless over an addiction and that I was unmanageable. I thought I was perfectly manageable. And it goes talks about to bring me back to sanity. I never thought I was insane. I thought I was doing just fine. I drink, I get drunk, I fall down, I get up, no problem. And that's kind of where I felt. Today, especially since I've learned more, this victim impact and victim awareness, that is so key to everything. Like on every board, I teach HVAC, in every classroom I ever had, I got no more victims top part of that board. And I mean that to the bottom of my heart. That's what hurts me the most is the people I've hurt. I used to say I never hurt nobody. I never physically harmed anybody. But when I learned that I did help hurt people in more ways than I can even imagine, that traumatized me, and that'll never happen again. Whether you release me or not, I'm still going to be the same man that I am today. I'm going to continue to help. I'm going to continue to do what I can do to help young men be better men.
Okay. How many children do you have?
I've got 4 boys, sir.
Are you in contact with your children?
I've talked to them frequently. One of them is the news anchor at WLX-TV in Biloxi. A couple of them are just, one's in Illinois, and they're kind of scattered around. When I was in Gold, they came to the rodeo every year, and I got to see them because they come together, all the brothers, and they all come at one time. But I've got 13 grandkids now, that most of them I don't even know, and hopefully I'm going to be able to be a part of their lives. If not, I understand. I wasn't there, but that's my grandkids is gonna be my life.
Okay. You know, you do have a long criminal history. We kind of discussed that. I looked at some things, you had a pretty rough upbringing, huh?
Yes, sir.
Kind of touch on it for us. I mean, don't go into great detail, but kind of touch on your upbringing.
I had a brother who was a mean, hateful individual. And, he put me in. And my sister was there, and others do a lot of things. You know, back in the '60s, you know, I used to throw rocks at them and run, call them hippies and dopeheads and run. And one day they grabbed me and held me down and shot drugs in my arm. I was just a child. It scared me. I thought I was going to die. I went and told my father what happened. He beat me for lying on my brother, and that was a continuous thing. And then I had a sister that died when I was young, and that just wrecked my mother and father. And from that point on, an older sister raised us. My parents became alcoholics. I was raised in bar rooms. My sister and I are here today. We, at 12 and 13 years old, was serving beer to my parents when they closed the restaurant down, drinking ourselves and getting drunk, getting sick. And I mean, that was my entire childhood. And please understand, I'm not making no excuse for anything I've done wrong. Because everything I've done wrong, I knew it was wrong. My childhood was rough, but I don't want this board to think that's an excuse, because I don't believe that. I believe that man knows right from wrong, no matter how your childhood was. And it was drug, it was selfish drug addiction is why I made those choices. And I didn't care about what happened to anybody else. It was me. That's not the same today. I care about everybody. These guys that I help in school, man, look, it cheers my heart when they tell me how well they're doing. That's a blessing for me. That's what's making who I am today.
I need to note for the record that you had some law enforcement opposition. You also had some victim opposition. There's not much you can do about that. We see that you got a letter for employment, offering you a job upon your release, which is good. It looks like a good job.
Yes, sir.
You know, it's just not just a laborer job. So, that's well, who you gonna live with?
I'm going to Pro Project, and I'm gonna stay there as long as I'm able, till I know for sure that I'm good. And from that point, I have a home available to me that I don't have to pay rent for the first month I on my feet. If that don't work out, I'm going to First 72 is who want to make me welcome, and I love those guys at First 72, and I'm going to make sure that my life is where it needs to be before I step out on my own. I want to be around people that I can be accountable to. You know, if I need help, I need somebody. I want somebody to be there that I can call and talk to. And First 72 and Pro Project is my goal, and that's what I want to do. That's where I'm going.
It's two good programs. I see you have a few health problems. What are your health problems?
Diabetic. I got, thank God, the Department of Correction basically saved my life with the hepatitis C, and I was actually the first person in the state of Louisiana to get treated, because Warren Kane made sure I got Horgona, because I built a school and an air conditioning school in Angola that really got some notoriety. We worked really hard. It turned out really well, and he helped me. That was before they had the generic Zephyr, and they gave me that, and I had stage 4 cirrhosis, and I was on my way out, and that kind of brought me, and I shook back, and so I've got a rash because the poison got my blood system. So for the last 7, 8 years, I've had to deal with this fungal rash from that poison. The Department of Correction just gave me the medicine 3 weeks ago to get rid of that, and it's moving rapidly. So, but diabetes really is the only thing, and I don't have to take insulin every day. It's getting better.
Okay. You know, what are some of your other accomplishments? I see you've been an HVAC tutor. What other community service have you done in the prison?
facilitated, a lot of different classes. Whenever when we eventually came here, before the staff pulled me up here, I facilitated Celebrate Recovery and victim awareness and Cage Your Rage and 100-hour pre-release and helping these guys and seeing, even in all those classes, basically that's what I done because of my skill set. The Department of Corrections always had a red flag. You can't go do this, you can't do that, you gotta stay doing this. I wanted to go to Bible college and I was approved 3 times, but the Department of Corrections, no, you can't do that because you fix all of our freezers and coolers, you gotta continue to do this. That's just the way that is, but I guess in community service, every time we've had to do sandbagging here, my old self got and done that, so broke me down, we're gonna do it again here, I think soon, but every chance I get to do community service, I'm going to, and whatever community service board would put on me, I would welcome.
Okay. You've only had 6 write-ups in 21 years. Your last one was in 17. It was serious. It was for intoxication. Warden, what do you have to say about Mr. Snyder?
Yeah, Mr. Freeman, I guess what stands out, about Mr. Snyder is, originally he was facing a life sentence with no chance of parole before his sentence got commuted. He had started working on himself, working on programs, volunteering, becoming a mentor, an instructor long before he ever even had a parole eligibility date. So I think that speaks volumes to his character and his motivation.
Thank you, Warden. I have no further questions.
No problem. Okay. Now we'll hear from some of your supporters. Let's hear from Ms. Doris Weiss, your sister. Good morning, Ms. Weiss. How are you? You're on mute. Could you unmute your microphone? I'm like you. I wouldn't know how to do it either.
I've never done it before.
There you go.
Good morning.
If you'll introduce yourself, please, and tell us what you'd like us to know about your brother.
I'm Doris Schneider Weiss, and I am the baby of the family. He is the closest one my age, so we was really, really close as we grew up. And we had a hard time. Him a little bit more than me because he was a boy and I was the baby. But we kind of lost mom and dad whenever my sister died. And we kind of raised ourselves, which he went a different way than I did, of course. I didn't like the drug part. It kind of scared me. And so I like Donny Osmond instead of the bad music. I finished school with honors and a scholarship. I tried to do everything that they didn't do, all the kids in front of me. And I need him here. I've lost my mom, my dad, my sister, and my brother, and I'm alone. And I just need him here with me. I need him for support, and I know he's a good guy. He's never hurt anyone. I beat him up. He never beat me up. And I really, really need him here. Even if it's support. Not having any family is hard, and he's all I have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Weiss. We appreciate your comments. Now we'll hear from Mr. Marshall Slay. Mr. Slay, are you there?
Thank you and all.
Judge Marabella, if it's possible, Chris Lease would like to make a brief comment instead of Mr. Slay.
Okay. What's your name, sir?
My name is Christopher Lease. I am one of Mrs. Schneider's friends as well as students. While I was in prison, I spent a 4th felony offender and spent 10 years incarcerated. My last 4 of those years, or 3 of those years, were spent here at Elaine Hunt with Mr. Schneider. This man has made a huge impact on my life as far as the career path I took whenever I got out. And for me being able to provide for my family. I'm not gonna say it was only him, I've had a lot of people in my life that I've met that have placed their hands in my life and set me on the path that I'm on. But this man right here, has been an integral part of my success and my recovery. And I think it's a disservice for the community for him to stay in prison any longer than he has to. But that's all I got. Thank you all.
Thank you very much for your comments, sir. And now we hear from Mr. Darrell Miles.
It's okay if Mr. Miles doesn't speak. I think Harry Myers has got the re-entry. piece.
Okay, Mr. Myers, Mr. Kerry Myers. We'll hear from Mr. Kerry Myers.
Good morning, Kerry Myers with Louisiana Parole Project. I'll be brief. This is, I think, is all about trajectory. This is all about the trajectory Mr. Snyder has been on since he entered prison. And I think his record, his accomplishments, his programs, his mentorship, his community service, his willingness to address his known issues, admit his known issues, address his known issues, the work he has done. Parole Project is here to provide transitional support. We'll do an evaluation, both a mental health and substance abuse evaluation. We'll assist him in getting, I think he's actually already has an excellent plan for that. We'll assist him in making the connections that he needs to make. He also has family support. He has community support. He has employment support. And when he already has a long-term residence waiting for him when he's completed our program. So I would just ask this board to look at the trajectory he's been on and grant his parole today.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. We always appreciate your comments. Mr. Schneider, is there anything you'd like to say before we turn it over to Ms. Myers?
Yes. Sure, I would. What I would like to do is sit here for hours and talk to you about the path that I took to get where I am. Because it's a path that if a lot of people would consider, it would change their life. The victims in my case, I would never want to pay restitution. I mean, I took a $20 bill from that man, but if you even add interest in $20 bills over 20 years, it's nothing. So I feel I owe him much more than that. Unfortunately, Miss Linda Matthews passed away a few years ago for some other illness, and I am so sorry that I put those people through what I did. I think Mr. Warren told my attorney that he even dealt with some fear, and that's a ripple effect of something like that happens. That happens to you, and you're like, well, man, can I go to a store? Is this going to happen? Is this guy really, the next one may really have a gun? Man, I don't want that. I don't want to do that to anybody. When I said before, I never physically hurt anybody. I don't want to hurt anybody anyway. I never want to have another victim. My attorney has worked diligently for 5 years pro bono, and I thank her and all these people spoke on in the board. I appreciate so much the opportunity. And one board on Ms. Board Buckner's here. These people are changing the face of this prison, making it possible for people to have change. Because when it's chaotic and drugs everywhere, it's hard for guys to make change. It's hard for them to accept the fact, well, if I start running this program, these guys aren't going to look at me like this. They're going to look at me like, man, he is making it possible for that to happen here. And that is a blessing. And I just wanted to make sure that I said that I appreciate it, and the board and everybody that's helped. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Ms. Myers?
Yes, sir. Thank you. You see all of the emotion that Mr. Snyder is expressing today, and he expresses his emotion well now because part of his recovery has been to feel his feelings. And it is difficult to feel the weight of all the people that you've let down, and yet see all these faces of people showing up to support you, even after having been gone for so long. Those of us who love people with addiction understand the devastation and precarity of it, but 6 years is no small accomplishment. For those of us who love people, we wish that we could see 6 years from people that we love. And it's a credit to Mr. Snyder and this institution that he's been able to achieve that. 20 years out of 60 years is a third of the time he was given, but his 2 convictions in this case were non-unanimous jury convictions. A lot of his priors would now be misdemeanors. That doesn't amount to a resentencing, but it's something to consider about the seriousness here. These former students and friends have travelled hours today to be here, and they're faithful and loyal friends that will be there for Mr. Snyder if you release him on parole for him to complete his 60 years. Mr. Snyder's in good enough health to be able to work for another 5 or 10 years. So I pray that he's given that chance and not kept here so long that he doesn't have a chance to work. We respectfully ask you to grant Mr. Snyder's request to complete his 60 years in the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Panel ready to vote?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Freeman?
Okay, Mr. Snyder, not a lie to you. When I first looked at your case and I saw 7 felony offender, I was kind of like, oh Lord, but I'm gonna tell you something. You are what rehabilitation is all about. Got in there, you took it serious, you did what you needed to do. I very much enjoyed this interview today. You have great support out there. Listen to them. A lot of them been there, done that.
Yes,
You don't seem like the type of person that's a know-it-all. So, there's still stuff to learn out there. My vote today is to grant, and that you attend 3 AA meetings a week. And once you're finished with the parole project and you get out on your own and you're back in your community, I would like for you to give it your parole officer and speak to at-risk youth. I think you have a great story to tell from when you were a child all the way up, because we have a lot of kids that have gone through the same situations that you have. And it's tough, very tough. So that's my vote today. Good luck to you.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Ms. Wise?
Mr. Chester, I concur with my colleagues. When I read and so forth and so on, I thought the same thing. But one of the things that impressed me off the top was the police report where the teller told you, get out of here. So you must have been a nice guy. Come in and offer you $20. They're like, you must have been a nice guy in the community. Then it was confirmed when your sister said you let her beat you up. So you really were a nice guy on the inside. The opportunities and the environment were just different. So I wholeheartedly vote to grant. And then what the warden said, you just continue to being a nice guy and start volunteering as soon as you got there. And I'm looking forward to reading and hearing great things of the impact that you're going to have in the community. Best wishes to you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Wise. Mr. Schneider, you have 2 votes to grant your parole. I agree with my colleagues and all of the things that they've said. I think you do have a lot to give back to the community, so good luck to you, sir.
thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have anything to share in terms of documentation or anything to go over. But what I do want to say is I think this is just further proof of how the Louisiana system is just really broken. A judge felt that he should get a life sentence. He had a bunch of minor felonies that the Ms. Myers from the Parole Project stated very elegantly. Non-unanimous jury verdicts, verdicts that would be considered misdemeanors now. Armed robbery with it was robbery. He pretended he had a weapon. And a judge said, yeah, I'm going to lock you away for life. And how does that make any sense? And then he got lucky. He got it commuted to 60 years. It's not clear to me if he had a previous commutation hearing or if this was a new law. I think it was just a law that was passed making his sentence unjust, the habitual offender bill. Now, frankly, the way he was going about the hearing, I almost felt he was like so. Maybe it's just impossible for me to relate to him, so I just can't see it through his eyes. But I felt that he was being so like, he had the perfect interview. Like he knew exactly what to say. He studied it, and it was so good it actually felt disingenuous to me. Not that I'm gonna hold it against him. Not that I think he's a sneaky guy that's gonna do anything wrong. I think he just knew what he needed to do. But how could anyone truly feel that way after being locked up for so long for doing so little? And to go through the system, being given life, then down to 60 years, to having served so long, and then the way that he talks about like his victims and what he's done to them and how he'll never make it up, and the $20 bill, like how could he ever pay back with the interest? He never could. And really, it's like, come on, it was a $20 bill. He went into a gas station, asked for money. The guy gave him $20 and told him, get out of here. And he did, like what Miss Wise said. And I couldn't imagine rotting away. Meanwhile, chomos get just slap on the wrist sentences. And you can't explain that to me. You can't explain it. Why does a judge think that this man, who's obviously has a problem with addiction, who obviously just needed some help, but someone who is a major disease where they are a pedo, where they're a chomo, where they're a roach, where they're always going to be a risk to a child, there you'll say probation, 2 years, 6 years, even if it's 15 or 20 years. I'm sick and tired of seeing these hearings where the most disgusting, despicable, they cannot be rehabilitated, is then getting set free. And in this case, it's just, when they were asked, why should we parole you? Said, if I was in your shoes, I don't know how to answer that. Like, come on, they're just like, how could you see you're not a bad guy? You deserve to be free. I don't get it. I don't get if he really means it or just, and another thing that's so sickening, there is law enforcement opposition. And it's like, go screw yourself. You're supposed to create like a trust with the community, and like it starts with these little things. Don't have a blanket opposition policy. Just don't. Take the time to you want to make either say no statement or show up to the hearing, but don't just do a blanket I oppose. It's just ridiculous. And then finally, Daryl Miles on the phone, just disrespectful, man. This guy is like, life is on the line. You want to show up and support, turn your camera off, but don't sit there on the phone during this man's hearing, the most important 30 minutes of his life up until this point, and you're sitting on the phone. It's just no excuse. I think he was even supposed to speak, and he was just too distracted. It's just not right. Gosh, the noise in the background. And that's it. I'm going to let you go. But, if you wouldn't see it, you might not believe it. That's why we do it. Thanks.